Friday afternoon, Gold and Black Live, the day before Halloween. Kind of a crazy last few days on a number of fronts. Tom Dienhart, Brian Neubert join me. I want to thank our sponsors, and of course that is, and I'm going to move my head, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow is a big day, State HDI tonight, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. We will be joined in segment 2 by Craig Terrell, former Boilermaker, standout Rose Bowl participant, four-year starter for Purdue and played for the Seahawks. And of course, Jay Lehman from the Big Ten Network will join Tom and me, and Brian and I will be talking to Craig Terrell. So let's get right to it, Brian. Certainly a big night tonight, 6 o'clock. Purdue will get a big announcement in recruiting, maybe. Nothing's ever absolutely certain, but talk about what we're going to see if Purdue gets a commitment from Mr. Kaufman.
Yeah, Trey Kaufman is a four-star, top 50 ranked forward from Silver Creek High School in Sellersburg, Indiana. Not exactly Purdue country.
No doubt.
Purdue's done a really good job recruiting him. Obviously, he would be an outstanding get for Purdue because he's a really good player, but also because if you combine him with Caleb First, you have two of the best front court players in their class nationally. Both guys are versatile. Both guys have skill sets that I think would complement each other really, really nicely. And I think if Purdue gets both of those guys, they ought to be doing cartwheels because they will have pulled off a pretty significant recruiting coup.
Yeah, and tonight, 6 o'clock, and you'll have multiple coverage, assuming it goes Purdue's way. It's going to be an interesting thing. And really, you look at that, and one thing that has been talked about a little bit, Brian, or a lot among our readers and fans, is just the fact that you combine that with First, and then also the guys that are already here in Morton and Ivy and Brandon Newman and others. You've got a pretty good nucleus for the future for this basketball program.
Yeah, they're building a really nice roster. These guards that Purdue signed last year, both Jaden Ivey and Ethan Morton, but then also Brandon Newman, the class before that.
Yeah.
It's kind of your backcourt of the future, and this could be your front court of the future if Purdue's able to put this tandem together. It'd be a very modern kind of front court. I should tell you a little bit about Trey Kaufman as a player. He's all of like 6'9" now. He gets bigger every time I see him. He got stronger. He got quicker. He got faster during the pandemic. He had a great pandemic from a basketball development perspective. I can't believe it. But he's always been a really versatile kind of inside-outside guy, but he looks quicker. He looks more skilled now. He looks more authoritative now. He can really shoot the three. He can post up. He can play around the basket. He can shoot mid-range jumpers. He can take people off the dribble. He's just a really good, really versatile, really modern forward. And so is Caleb First, who can play both the 5 and the 4. I think Kaufman can play any front court position, but I think Purdue legitimately recruited him to play some at the 3. He'll move to the 4 some also. Those guys can be really good. Purdue can have a really skilled, really interchangeable front court with those two.
Brian, I enjoy having this done, and I'm sure a lot of viewers and readers like it too, but I always want to know, buddy, give me a comparable. Give me a former Purdue player who you think has a comparable skill set to a guy like Trey Kaufman. I'm not saying an exact clone, but kind of give us an idea of an image we already are used to that maybe Kaufman sort of would replicate.
Yeah, I've always compared him to Vincent Edwards. It's not a perfect comparison because I think Vincent Edwards has better guard skills, but Trey Kaufman is going to be bigger. But I think from a skill set perspective, they're pretty similar in terms of their ability to play inside and outside. Again, Vincent Edwards had better guard skills, and I think Trey Kaufman does at this stage. But they also kind of look a little bit alike too. So the facial resemblance and whatnot is there as well. So perhaps that makes me a little bit biased toward the Vincent Edwards comparison, but I think it's a decent one. Again, they're not identical, but the situation might be very similar too, because when Purdue had Caleb Swanigan and Vincent Edwards together to get their best 5 on the floor, Caleb Swanigan played the 4, Vincent Edwards played the 3. That wasn't always their best matchup, but it did give Purdue some advantages too, and Purdue won a hell of a lot of games with that kind of pairing. I could see that being the sort of thing that if Purdue lands Trey Kaufman, Caleb First maybe starts the 4, Trey Kaufman maybe starts the 3. All of a sudden you have a big lineup out there that can absolutely terrorize the offensive glass. That can give you a lot of physical advantages. But then once you get into your rotations, maybe First slides inside to the 5, where I think his best matchups will lie. Trey Kaufman slides over to the 4, where I think his best matchups will lie. and you just have a lot of positive matchups. You can play differently. You can play more mobile. You can play faster, and you can have 5 guys on the floor who can shoot the ball.
I like the fact he's 6'9". I mean, and you talk about that size difference. That really is a difference maker. Nothing against Vincent Edwards. He's a terrific college player. That extra couple inches may come in handy just with that extra little bit. But it'll be 6 o'clock tonight. Stay tuned. It'll be never a dull moment in Purdue basketball recruiting, and this would be a big get if for Matt Painter and company if this all comes to pass. Tom, we'll move to not to take any backseat, but the crazy world of COVID-19 in the last 48 hours. But also, Purdue's got a football game on Saturday against a team that really was miserable last week in a loss at Wisconsin, that 45-7 loss by Illinois. Still, this is the COVID world. You can't take anything for granted. In addition to absolutely guaranteeing we'll have a game tomorrow. We think as of 2:07 p.m. on Friday afternoon Eastern time, it's all going to happen. But just a lot of things swirling around this game and some real intrigue as well.
Yeah, there was some scuttlebutt that maybe there was an outbreak of some sort among Illinois players. But again, nothing confirmed. No reason to think, guys, that this game is not going to go off as scheduled tomorrow, noon Eastern, on the Big Ten Network. So, yeah, I mean, Alan, what more can you say? This is a never-ending drama that it has many twists and turns, and there's more to unfold for us. This week we got our first Big Ten game canceled. Of course, Wisconsin's trip to Nebraska was called off, deemed a no contest. And, of course, Illinois played Wisconsin last week. So people are connecting the dots, thinking there may be some players affected for the Illini. But nonetheless, Purdue is forging on, guys, going to go to Champaign, looking to go 2-0. And, on this trip, protocols are a little bit different for Purdue, as you would imagine in this COVID world. This is their first time leaving town to play a football game. Talking to Jeff Brom yesterday, he says they're going to take more buses than usual over to Champaign, over on I-74. They're going to have some meetings back at Purdue that they usually have on the Road Hotel because, guys, in the state of Illinois right now, they've got some restrictions on the number of people you can have in any one room at one time as well. And also, guys, from a testing standpoint, I asked Jeff yesterday when they typically test the players on game days, and they usually do that on the day of the game. But because of the early nature of this game, starting at 11 a.m. Champaign time, Jeff said they're going to be tested the day before. So this is a brave new world for Purdue as it trudges out on the road in this COVID environment. And also, guys, this is going to be Jeff Brom's first game on the sidelines of 2020.
Yeah, and Brian, I know you've talked about and written about, and again, there's no joy in Wisconsin's situation, obviously, and we're never on the side of anybody getting sick or being in a compromised position. But Purdue sits in an interesting spot early on from a competitive standpoint. Certainly, Brian, you got your first win in one of those 50-50 games. You have a game next against Illinois that you're a 7-point favorite. All of a sudden, that schedule could open up for you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily want to, kind of turn stories of people getting sick into, football advantages or whatever. But hell, I mean, if Purdue starts 2-0 this week, then gets a bye week for the Wisconsin game when nobody else as of right now has a bye week, Wisconsin is the Goliath on your schedule. And at best, now you're playing them with their 4th-string quarterback, right? And You're playing them in a situation where they will have very limited practice time. And I'm still curious how that will go because there are student-athlete safety considerations there. Where if you don't practice for a week, are you really going to practice for 2 days and then play a Big Ten football game? I don't know. But this is the game on the schedule that you circle and you say, that's the one that, hey, I'm not sure they can get that one. But even if it's played now, all of a sudden it looks very different. So if it's not played, all of a sudden a very difficult schedule, a very difficult game comes off your schedule. You get a week off. Now, who knows what kind of advantage that'll end up being when, this is week 2, by the way, and this happened. So there's no reason to think that, very little reason to think that everything will go smoothly, from here on out. But if Purdue ends up ducking Wisconsin by circumstance, that would seem like a pretty big advantage in the Big Ten West standings. But, at best, they play them with their 4th-string quarterback, and all of a sudden a game you wondered if they could win, suddenly all of a sudden that looks very different.
Yeah, very different situation. Tom, Rondale Moore, and it's been a weekly discussion with him since his injury almost back in the Minnesota game this past a year ago. We're going to make the assumption he's not going to play. So let's start with that notion and say, what are you more interested in watching tomorrow? Purdue's defense, who showed very, very well in the second half. Yes, it gave up 460 yards against Iowa, but did the job. Or are you interested in seeing how Aiden O'Connell straps and moves forward? Is there one or the other, or is it a little bit of both as you watch the Boilermakers an hour before noon on Central Time tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, scrambled eggs in football on Saturday. Yeah. I tell you what, I think the defense, Alan, just because we have a little sample size of Aiden O'Connell and certainly has more to prove to us, but still, that was only Act 1 of Bob Diaco's new defense last Saturday against Iowa, guys, and I think I can speak for a lot of people. Came away pretty impressed for initial run and a new scheme and new players, some new players playing in the new spots as well. So I'm not saying Illinois' offense is going to be the greatest test in the world either. As you guys know, they were flat out abysmal up in Madison, last Friday. Offense didn't even score a point. Basically, no pass game, no run game, guys. Brandon Peters was quarterback. Brandon Peters, quarterback, was their top rusher. Again, Wisconsin stuffed the box, guys, and dared Illinois to pass it, and they couldn't pass it. So, again, still, I'm sure they're going to make adjustments. And, again, this will be another nice test for Purdue's defense. How do they handle success, right? At least a modicum of success. And then how do they, combat an offense that has some tape on them now, and it's going to have some new wrinkles for them as well. So, again, I'm eager to see how this defense continues to evolve, fellas.
Last minute or so, Brian, and for you, what do you think is a key thing for Purdue to get out of there with a win? What will you be watching as be a sure sign that Purdue will be successful in Champaign?
Just consistency. I mean, this is a program that's not exactly been on an even keel for a very long time. And, this is an opportunity for Purdue to start well, build on success. I thought the defense, was the story of the game against Iowa, especially the way the game ended. And I think big part of that was I didn't see a whole lot of missed assignments. I didn't see a whole lot of breakdowns. I didn't see a whole lot of missed tackles, just a very sound game. And for that to be the first outing under a new system after a really weird offseason, I think that was really encouraging. And I think when you have an opponent that's, not particularly gifted offensively, I think you have to be sure to be sound because you have to make them earn everything. And I just kind of want to see consistency from Purdue, especially defensively. And, obviously it's probably too obvious to even bring this up, but Purdue can't give Illinois any advantages. They can't turn the ball over, put themselves in compromising positions, things like that. Because if Illinois just has to drive the field every time against Purdue's defense with that offense, I think that's going to be a very hard road to hoe, so to speak.
All right, Lovie Smith has made whatever success, which hasn't been a lot, but he did have it last year with making it on turnovers and defensive. They did score the only points last week against Wisconsin on a scoop and score. So I guess it was kind of a scrum and score as it turned out if you watch the tape. But anyway, it'll be an interesting thing to watch. And I think that this will be an interesting week in Purdue sports. So as it seems to be every week of late. All right, well, we will take a 2-minute break, and then Brian will join Craig Terrell, and we will look forward to talking to the former Boilermaker standout defensive tackle and what he is doing now. He's a Golden Black intern too, great guy, and we're glad to catch up with him. And then, of course, Jay Lehman and myself with Tom Dienhart will break down every bit of Illinois. I'm going to guess Jay does not hold back on his comments on the Fighting Illini, so always entertaining as well. So stay tuned for the next couple minutes, and we'll be back for segment 2 of Golden Black Live.